Standing at the biomass campus for West Coast Arborists. I like to think of ourselves as the pallbearers for trees. We bring the trees into the afterlife, and we have a tough, this is like triage. We're going to go by the triage area. We're going to look at the logs. We're going to say, oh my gosh, there is life for you in the afterlife. You get pulled to the line first, and if there's one that's hollow and rotten, and I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to save it, but where those ones go into wood chips, and that goes out back into the community and farms all around. So welcome, and this is where the magic happens, So the average city in California has over 270 different species of trees. It's actually the most biodiverse urban forest in North America. Some cities have over 900 trees, like San Diego, because of botanical gardens, and Balboa Park, they got over 1,000 trees, different species in Balboa Park. We got trees from all over the world, right?
In much of the United States, people came to the forest. The cities came to the forest. In California, there's only a handful of species that are native to here, and there's really not supposed to be a lot of trees here. But you fast forward and backfill millions and millions and millions of people, we need trees, we need shade. So California is unique where almost every tree species you will see anywhere is non-native. And in a lot of other parts of the country, the people came to the remnants of what forest was left. So there's only a handful of species to choose from. And one of the reasons it works so well with Taylor Guitars and West Coast Arborists is right in our own backyard in Southern California, there's thousands of trees to consider. If we were in another part of the country, let's just pick, Michigan or, Florida, you kind of get what you get, you don't get upset. There's like 4 or 5 trees that will be coming through the system. Here, it's an insane mix of trees that came from Australia, that came from India, that came from Brazil, that came from all over the bloody world. So that's why this has kind of worked out, that there are multiple species that were planted here that turn out to be excellent tonewoods.
And we're not slowing down on tree planting too. We also plant trees as a company. We're going to go visit our nursery later, maybe see some future, trees, because you got to plan for the afterlife on these trees. Plant it for the planet. People, YouTube, everyone, remember Plant a Million Trees?
Right.
Everyone was ready to plant 1 million trees. Well, more trees in eventually means more trees out, right? Trees don't live forever, so we got to have a plan on what to do. You can't put them in the landfill anymore. That's just a waste, and we're wasting all the off gases off that. So how can we manage the trees as they come out and as they go in? So we're planting really cool stuff for the future. We're planting more chamois ash, we're planting more black acacia, we're planting all these cool things. There's like 1,500 trees they've decided that are good to plant for the next 100 years.
1,500 different species.
Different species.
Wow.
And then if you go to a nursery, like some cities, they require us to put in a 48-inch box tree. That's like a 12-year-old tree. So whatever was popular 12 years ago is what you can get in that size. So now we're starting to grow more plants from seed that off this future list that we think is going to be, more successful. Like maybe our oaks that have thrived here as the temperatures get hotter, those oaks will survive in the cooler spots, but in the hot spots, maybe they're not going to survive. So we go around from Mexico, South Africa, places that are a little hotter than we are. And that's the trees that we're going to start planting so that they're climate ready for the next 100 years.
The state of California has a list of climate-ready trees for different parts of the state. And these are all trees that come from, as John said, Australia or India or Brazil, or places where the government believes our climate is going to be more similar in the future to their climate today. So we're thinking Southern California is going to be a lot more like Australia in the future than it is today. And if a tree is going to live for 100 or 200 years, why don't we find a tree that's going to be able to handle a changing climate? So the state has a list of trees that they recommend we plant in order to be prepared for a changing climate.
I never even considered that.
Yeah, wow. It's pretty funky.
Yeah.
We'll walk by everything. Right behind us, we got our sawmill, and they're slicing up an Acer Saccharina. I think I pronounced that right. That's silver maple, and maple typically has got a lot of action in it, right? You see the quilted maple. Do we ever get like quilted maple? No, that comes from like a specific area on the border of Canada. All right, we'll start over there while they slice this up. So while they get started on it. So we trim trees with over 360 different municipalities, right, and public agencies like UC Berkeley, different schools, and this is where we dump our materials locally. So the logs will get dumped by our crews daily, 15 truckloads a day. Maybe we'll get 50 to 60 tons of material in here every day. And then we'll decide whether it's going to go for a saw log or if it's going to go into the mulch or into firewood.
What's typically causing them to be taken out?
Dead? So dead, dying, diseased trees. Sometimes when you cut the sidewalk, when you cut the roots to build a sidewalk, you're kind of putting a hinge point, and then it's like an open wound just stuck in the soil. Oh, that's not a good move, right? You cut your hand off and stick it in the soil. You're probably going to get some funky disease. So most of the time, like sometimes hollow trees are really good, right? We like birds. Birds need hollow logs for habitat. So if it's in a place where there's not going to be a target, and by a target I mean like a little kid playing or a swing set. So most of the time it's a risk management. Right? We got millions of people. Every weekend people come to this park and they take their family photos, right? And then do you want that tree? If it's hollow and it's hollow, that's why they're coming out. So we actually do.
Yeah, and all living things die.
Sure.
So as John was saying earlier, part of the issue for arborists is the system wasn't built. The system was built to plant, care for, and remove trees. But the disposal of the tree was never really baked into the equation.
Yeah.
And now, especially in California, you can't just landfill this stuff anymore. So finding an economy, finding a market for the tree is increasingly important. But if we double, everyone wants to plant more trees, we think that's a great idea. But if he's having a problem today dealing with the end of life cycle for the current inventory, what's it going to be like if we double that inventory, if we triple that inventory? Eventually it comes out the other end of the pipe, and we've got to find some sort of an economic value for this wood, because we simply can't chip it and burn it and mulch it like we used to.
And John, on average, what's the average age of the trees that you're having to take out now?
Well, I mean, like if you look on a big size tree, 50, 60, 80 years old, like in Sacramento, a lot of the big elms are 100 years old. So sometimes we see that, but on average, it's actually younger trees because this is a harsh environment for trees, and there's like a infant mortality in trees that kind of throw those numbers off. So people out there on brand new trees, give them some water. Don't just plant trees, grow them. You got to care for them for at least a couple years so that they make it past that initial phase and they can live for the long time.
Yeah.
Black acacia trees, their lifespan's 50 years.
Gotcha.
So at 50, you get one 75 years, that's incredible. But really, as trees get larger too, they cost more, right? And they pose a bigger risk. So maybe there's some thoughts. Don't let your tree population get too old.
Right.
And all of the trees are too old, and then all of a sudden a disease comes and wipes out all the big trees on the block. That's a bad move, because if you remove all the trees at once in a neighborhood, the death rate in the people goes up.
Yeah.
It's like... So
it takes a while for a tree to grow.
That's right. So you got to have a plan, plant and remove, a certain amount of your urban forest every year so that you don't get caught in that kind of situation that some cities are caught into.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think my Uncle Al, great tree guy, told me that a long time ago. That
I
they would
believe
plant
it.
big oaks, like 3, and you need more space for big oaks. And in the middle, they would plant black acacia, and they would fill in the space. But as the oaks got bigger, those black acacia, were ending the year of their life cycle, and they can cut those down and let the oaks.
So a lot of your black acacia ending their life cycle right now would have been planted back in the 70s.
Yeah. Sometimes in certain areas, black acacia is considered a little weedy. So in San Francisco, it takes off by itself, and they don't want it to propagate in certain places. So maybe we're getting ones like this diameter.
Gotcha.
But we are still getting,
big ones.
Some big ones.
Yeah. Cool. It's always good to have a good tree guy, you know.
Hey, you know. So this is typical on why this tree get removed. Did you want this branch
Coming off
above your house? So typically, definitely nothing's getting removed for timber value. It's all getting removed because it poses a risk to the city, and
Right.
the people that are living in the city. So that's why, and we don't get to choose if a tree comes down. We can say, hey, we saw this, it's really hollow, you should think about removing it. Then once they order that, that's when it comes down.
Gotcha.
And every tree that we have is GPS data. So we have this inventory software where we inventory the city's trees, and that helps the city manage and know what they have. And it helps us manage the waste stream because we get a couple weeks ahead of schedule that we know what's going to come in, and we can try to, steer that to where we make sure we save all the pearls, but we still, do right by the material. So this is a shamel ash. Oh, urban ash, 324 CE right here. Woo-wee! Native to Mexico, Fraxinus UDI, the only UDI you want to buy. So it's native to Mexico, brought to this area, Riverside Inland Empire, in the 30s by a guy named Archie Shamel, and that's why it's called locally
Shamel ash. Nice.
This thing, you can count the rings. It's not that old, so this tree grows super fast. You can get a 5-foot wide shamel ash in 60 years.
Oh, wow.
And this is not typical. Shamel ash doesn't rot out too bad, but you can come and look, and if you look at the end here. So because of that branch, right, was an open wound, fungus landed on there and started to decay the whole inside of the tree. So you got this brown rot here. Next to that, you guys heard of spalting?
Yeah, of course.
You know what spalting's caused by?
It's a disease, right?
It's like a fungus.
Yeah.
So the fungus will turn the wood certain colors, and then the tree, in response to the fungus, will turn the wood certain colors. And if you're like a fungi, you could figure it out, and you can make wood spalted. But if you look like right around here, you can see this color
The
change.
coloring, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be some cool wood in there.
Yeah, it can make some neat stuff.
Yeah. And the good thing, quarter sawn. You guys ever heard of quarter sawn?
Yeah, versus flat sawn.
Versus flat sawn.
Yeah.
Right? The rings of the tree need to be going vertical in the board. That makes the wood not shrink in width, but it shrinks in thickness. So with humidity, your guitar's not gonna blow up, right? Pretty cool.
Right.
That all comes from the outside of the tree. So even though this has decay on the inside, we'll still cut this up, cut the decay out of it, and still get a lot of worth of guitars, even out of a log that some might consider low value. We'll still squeeze pieces out of it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it makes a really pretty wood. What is black-hearted sassafras that we'll get guitars on?
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's all from fungus coloring that.
That's right.
Yeah, and it otherwise would be pretty plain-looking wood, except for the fun guys.
That's it. Make magic in there.
Everyone needs some fun guy and a good tree guy.
Yeah. So our
That's
crews
awesome.
will dump the logs here. If
Okay.
you look behind us, you can see some of these log tags. So every night I get an alert, and we're gonna look at this later on the computer,
Okay.
but I get an alert of what's coming down. And so I can look at the tree on street view, and I can send a message to our foreman and say, hey, if it's safe, take it down in as big a piece as you can, and make sure you get a tag on it so that we can track it from where it came, and we know what species it is. With 1,000 different trees, you need some markings, So
Sure.
If you look down there, we can see where this tree came from. City of Riverside Parks,
City of Riverside Parks. Interesting.
a Calabrian pine. Oh my gosh, this is actually a special tree. There's a kind of a fun thing. There's a mountain out here called Mount Rubidoux, and it's got a little, do you know this Mount Rubidoux? It's got some mission thing, I'm screwing this up, but it's got some tower, and they planted this peace pine, a Calabrian peace pine, and it recently died. And so what do? Do we just put it through the chipper? We're making a bunch of postcards and a bunch of things that are gonna go back to the city that memorializes that tree.
That's cool.
So we get to do fun projects like that every once in a while too. For a city in El Cajon, we took an old oak tree and we made 13 guitars, right?
Oh yeah, that was Poway.
City of Poway, the city in the country, they lost like their oak that was on the city seal.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the town just destroyed, right? This beautiful oak. What can we do to memorialize it? How do we keep telling that story and singing that song? I mean, that guitar bring tears to my eyes.
That's awesome.
This one right behind you, this is the national tree of Pakistan, brought to the United States in 1860. It's called Deodar cedar, Cedrus deodara. Famously built the houseboats on the Srinagar River in Nepal.
Wow.
And now it's all around in people's front yards. It's got a great smell if you want to stick your schnoz in there.
It's another great example. California has the best potpourri of tree species imaginable. Everything was brought here. Everything grows here. There weren't trees. So there's just a ridiculous cross-section of wood from Pakistan, from India, from Brazil, from Australia, from everywhere. And it's really helpful as a guitar maker because we get to go through that and find the ones that are truly excellent Tonewoods.
Yeah.
And if because of the tracking system that they have, John mentioned, he gets an alert the night before, and if it's one of the species that he knows that Taylor's particularly interested in and it's safe to remove, they take it down with care. And if not for this insane inventory of options that was planted in California, it probably wouldn't work. The whole thing probably wouldn't work.
Well, and so that brings up an idea, Scott. What's the ecological benefit of not having to transport wood from halfway around the world, particularly if it's a similar species that you could use?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. Because on the one hand, obviously, if the logistics are closer, that's less of a carbon footprint. It's kind of where we need to go, not be so reliant upon global chains of custody. But the truth is, for Taylor Guitars, it's cheaper today to buy rosewood from India or mahogany from Fiji or wood from almost anywhere in the world than it is to buy wood from LA County. And that's because the supply chains for these traditional wood markets are so greased in that it makes a lot of sense. What we're doing with West Coast Arborists, we're kind of making it up as we're going along.
Yeah.
We're building a bridge and they're building a bridge, and it started to work and there were some problems, and then we fixed the problems, and every year it gets a little easier, every year it gets a little cheaper. And someday, hopefully soon, it's going to be cheaper to get urban wood than it is to get wood from traditional sources. But today, it's actually more expensive. So why are we doing it? We're doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because globally, the traditional places that guitar makers source wood, it's getting really complicated. When Taylor started 50 years ago, there were 4 billion people on the planet. 50 years later, there's over 8 billion people on the planet. And the traditional old growth resources are really stressed. So we just need to be able to think our way out of it. And one possible way out of it is to create an economy where we're able to tap into local woods. The quality of the wood is, there's no issue there. It's excellent, excellent tone wood. We wouldn't do this if it wasn't as good as wood from anywhere.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure's not there yet, so it's a little bit more expensive. But each year it gets easier.
It's an interesting point, because I would bet, I know consumers have an assumption that part of the reason to do this is a cost savings that's not real. And that there's a benefit to the actual tone wood you're getting, but like I said, you're having to create the logistical, map for all of it.
It's a big misconception that urban wood is cheaper than other woods, and it's not. It's not today. It's not going to be next year. It's not going to be after that. Eventually, I think we'll probably be able to get it dialed in. Taylor Guitars uses such a tiny fraction of the available excellent quality wood that if you talk to Bob, he's like, we're just trying to be a test case. We're trying to be an example. If a guitar maker who, no one is more persnickety than a guitar maker when it comes to sourcing wood, if we can make it work, then larger economies who have less precise standards, it can work for them too. And if a large enough economy taps into operations like this for furniture, for flooring, for any wood product, then the environmental impact really takes off.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's more expensive and it's more complicated. But hopefully, we'll keep chipping away at it. You know, we're doing it because Bob Taylor's looking 10 years into the future, and he sees the trends, and we're just, you know, diversifying our options.
How long has it been at this point that y'all work together, West Coast and Taylor?
6 years?
About 6 years, which is pretty fast.
Yeah.
To bring a new Tonewood to the market.
Yeah.
Because there is so much research and R&D that needs to take place. You know, can they get us the wood? And then we get the wood, and then we have to dry it, we have to test it, we have to bend it, we have to sand it, we have to stain it. It's got to pass Andy Power's test. I mean, it's got to be real good stuff. And then if we pass all those thresholds, we go back to John and say, can you get it consistently, predictably, at the volumes that we think we need? And because West Coast Arborist has got this database that we'll see later this afternoon, where they know every single tree in the state of California and a little bit of Arizona. How many million trees? You got 6 million trees or something?
Oh, it's more 11 million trees in the database.
11 million trees in the database. They can pull up every single one of them. And they know if it's ironbark eucalyptus. They know if it's chamois ash. They know if it's deodar cedar. And they know how old it is. They know what kind of condition it's in. If they didn't have that infrastructure, none of this is possible. Because we need to know that if we introduce a new species, there's a reasonable chance we're going to get it next year and for the next 10 years.
Right.
We don't want to introduce a new species and then suddenly Big John's just like, oh yeah, there's not going to be any more of those coming through the system for a while.
Yeah, I've heard Bob talk about that, you know, from his pragmatic approach. It doesn't matter if it's the best tonewood in the world. If you can't get a good supply of it, then it really doesn't matter.
And as John was saying, that's so true. And as John was saying, the choices that we have today, the wood that we have available today, are because the generation before us, or 2 generations before us, they made a decision for some reason. Usually it was aesthetics, you know, a pretty tree, or just what was available. Those woods have reached the end of their life cycle, those trees, and now those are our options. So today, much of what John's dealing with is making sure we're planting the trees that actually have end-of-life value, that are really good sequestering carbon, because our children, we're making choices that are going to affect our children, just like our parents made choices in what they planted, and these are the options that we have today. So we have to be deliberate in what we're planting, as well as, you know, what we're sourcing for tonewood.
So we know about the ash and the ironbark. There's also the fingerboards and bridges of the eucalyptus. Does that come through here as well?
You sell us ironbark eucalyptus and chamois ash.
Right. There's a few other eucalyptus.
When there's black acacia is planted all throughout California.
Walnut gets mixed in with the other sources as well.
There's a lot of species that come from an urban source that are on a Taylor guitar that we're not necessarily promoting as urban, because only a percentage of that wood is coming through John. The rest of it is coming through more traditional sources.
I find it, I gotta say, I think it's kind of fascinating that you're promoting any of it as an urban tonewood, because it'd be easy, and a lot of guitar companies do this, to just say, it's called this, and kind of hide maybe its origin or what it really is, but there's a purpose to trying to educate people about it, even if it might run contrary to what someone might say from a marketing standpoint for consumers.
Why is it important that we're talking about urban wood and urban trees, John?
Trees are important, you know, and it's an opportunity for us to, you know, clean up the waste stream, and it provides jobs, you know, sorting. If you have a chipper, it's just one person can run a chipper, right, with a remote control. One person, boom, and they turn it into a product right away. But how many, you know, more people are employed now because we're salvaging these logs? So it's a job creator. Was that what you were looking for?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
And but the other side of that same coin is the circular economy dream.
Yeah.
And if we're educating people that this is as fine quality wood for multiple purposes, any wood anywhere, then it kind of makes you stop and think. Milk doesn't come from Safeway. Wood doesn't come from Home Depot. There is a farm or a forest behind those things. And this wood happens to come from an urban landscape. We're realizing more and more the importance of urban landscapes and the importance to green them.
Yeah.
And from social, economic, environmental, the data's overwhelming. The wealthier the community, the more trees they have. The more trees they have, the better mental health, the less crime, the lower your energy bill. The list goes on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. So part of the story of urban wood, not just that it's awesome wood, as good as any wood, but it opens up a conversation about the need to green our urban infrastructures, to plant trees for every reason. If your politics are left, right, and center, your quality of life is better.
Yeah.
If you're living in an area that's more of a garden atmosphere than a concrete desert.
Don't take trees for granted.
That's right.
You kind of touched on this, but I think it's an interesting thing to get into. Is there any difference in the quality of the tree, whether it comes from an urban source or a forest?
When you take, so drying wood is looked over, I think, by every average person in the world. People don't realize what it takes to dry wood to make it a quality product. So the log can start out super quality, but if you dry it wrong, you're not going to have a good thing. A lot of the trees in urban wood, the urban wood business, nobody really took it as serious as Taylor Guitar takes their drying, So we've learned a lot from them too. So now we're really noticing the only difference between our wood and a traditional source is the zip code that it was grown in. And they've helped us grow and provide a way higher quality product and take care of our logs. You can hear the sprinkler in the background going on the chamelash because we want to preserve that wood. So there's these tricks that we learned that will really help grow the whole urban wood industry once we really know how to align with everything. So the wood, just the same quality, high quality, just a different zip code.
Yeah, and Bob will say if you're in a natural forest, you're in a plantation, and you look at a bunch of mahogany trees or whatever, some of those mahogany trees are flooring trees, some of those are furniture trees, only a very few of them are Tonewoods.
Yeah.
So even in an idealized natural setting, only a small percentage of those are Tonewood trees.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in an urban setting.
Yeah.
But you can get an urban tree that produces every bit as much Tonewood muscle as one from a plantation and one from an urban forest. The zip code, as John says, is kind of irrelevant.
That's awesome.
So we've got all these different species. We've got coast live oak, red oak, ironbark, eucalyptus in the back. This one is another one of those Calabrian pines. Ooh, fancy, but just pine, We got sycamore back there, Modesto ash, Australian she oak, poplar, cork oak. Have you guys ever seen cork oak before?
I don't think so.
Well, let's go run over there real quick. So this is where cork comes from. So the bark of this tree is cork. So they'll pinch it off like that, and they'll take a punch and they'll cut corks out of it.
Huh. Now, where does this originally come from?
Portugal.
Portugal.
Yeah, but this one came from Beverly Hills. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. I have seen this, but it came off a bottle of wine.
Look at the feast we could have had. Okay, We'll keep cruising over there. Anyone else want to squeeze on it? Yeah, it's so soft. Wow.
So John, talk a little bit, you started, but talk a little bit about the changes you've made as an operation.
Yes.
When we met to today, just in
Right.
terms of the care and feeding of the wood when it comes in.
Yeah, so after we were really passionate about this. We didn't have anyone that believed in it as much as we did, right? But we were trying our best. But when Taylor came along and we realized which species were the right species, we started to change our build the bridge, right? We typically would not be salvaging logs from Ventura to here. Maybe that's a couple 100 miles, but if we know that we can keep the logs as a solid wood product and not pay the dump fees, it actually does work out, and if you can make a product out of it. So we reached out to all the different areas that we worked, and we really worked with the area managers and the crews to try to educate them on how to cut down the trees so that we can salvage more material, right? If we have an option to use a crane, let's try to use a crane if we can get a longer section of big material, and that helps us. Or from the bottom on the bottom cut, if we can make or the felling cut, if we can make a flat cut instead of cutting the notch, maybe we save 6 more guitars if it's a really good tone wood, you know. So these educating our crews on how to care for the wood and make sure that we keep it nice and fresh. So if you come over here, we got the shade barn. You know, it takes an average of 1 inch per year to dry wood. So a 1 inch thick piece of wood takes 1 year to dry. 2 inch thick piece of wood takes 2 years to dry. So really have to, the beginning stages is where you can set yourself up for success or failure. So now we got all the tone woods underneath a sprinkler. We just spread new asphalt right here too, so some of the tone woods are missing. You're like, where's the black acacia? Where's the ironbark? Well, we're about to put them back in. We just finished spreading the asphalt. So everything gets cut to a specific size, and then we wax the ends because it's full of water, and we want to control the drying process. This, you know, wood wants to be in equilibrium. Yeah. Right. That's why, you know, we all know that. Guitar people know that. Yeah, wood wants to be whatever the humidity is. We're dry, super dry. Wood wants to be like 3% moisture content out here on a dry day. You know, we're blessed and cursed at the same time. If you take a log like this, it's probably losing a pound every half an hour of just water, you know, if it wasn't end sealed. So that really helps protect the wood. And you can see there's not a lot of end checking on any of it, even though it's sitting in direct sunlight. And thank God we got the sprinkler going. That keeps the wood swollen so that we can cut it up to the specific sizes and it can dry in the ultimate scenario.
So the question was, would someone be able to pick a tree from their neighborhood, you know, say, I want a guitar made of this tree, and you've got data
yes.
on what's where.
So it's actually, you know, would be really difficult to track it down, right? Because a big log gets cut up into so many little pieces, and those get cut up into littler pieces. So that would be a logistics nightmare. But say you are involved in your community and you want to make sure that chamois ash trees are getting planted, you know, 60 years down the line, you can say there's a high chance that it came from your neighborhood because you're producing those kinds of trees. But really, Riverside and Inland Empire is where the chamois ash is growing and being recycled from. So anyone from the Riverside or Inland Empire, they're blessed with being able to say that.
So you said early on when we first got here that you can't decide when a tree's getting cut down.
Correct.
And it's municipalities that engage your services. So for people that want to ensure that trees that are in their area don't turn into mulch, what should they do?
So that is a great question, and I'm all about recycling the tree. So I feel that if you're in this area, we make our services available to the public too. So if someone has their tree removed and they want to save it, we're more than happy to work with them to turn that into reusable, kiln dry, beautiful lumber that we can partner with another maker or something. But also the urban wood thing is a growing movement. Every major city in the United States has an urban wood something going on. So people can definitely reach out to their local urban wood sawmill and their tree would be recycled. But funny enough, even the head of the National Hardwood Lumber Association in Memphis, Tennessee, where there's 50 sawmills in the county, he lost an oak tree in his backyard. He went to every sawmill and said, these are big sawmills. Yeah. And said, can I do this? No. Can I do this? No. It takes people like Taylor Guitars to say like, hey, this is possible. We're gonna step forward and show the way. You know, so it's
the forest products industry in the U.S. or anywhere, it's time is money, speed, volume, and that's smart for them.
Sure.
And the urban wood thing is far more of a boutique business, especially at this stage. It's barely even boutique.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. So everything's just a little bit more expensive, and you've got to find people who can see the future and are willing to take a chance. And West Coast arborists, they're huge arborists, but this helps them control their waste inventory, but they also see a real growth opportunity in the future. There's nothing wrong with mulch. They're selling mulch all day long.
Healthy soils, healthy souls.
Nothing wrong with firewood. But there's so much wood that has traditionally gone to mulch or firewood that is as fine quality building wood as any wood you'll ever find.
Well, hey, people want like farm to table food.
Amen.
Farm to, home furniture, whatever.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So in these drying sheds, these are like our pre-drying sheds. Like when we cut guitar billets, right? So we'll cut billets for acoustic guitars and electric guitars for Powers Electric. And we will take care of that, and they'll sit in the pre-drying shed so that they don't dry out too much. And when you come in here, you can see those ones over there that look like tamales. We wrap them up. We cover the end grain. This is a new thing that we started doing since we were friends with Taylor. And we realized we really have to take care of this wood. Like the sawmill, that's 10% of it. Material handling is 90% of it. And you need to take care of it like a sweet little baby. And if you forget for a day, it's gonna pinch you in 2 years.
Is this one of yours?
Yeah!
So not only is he a reverend, but he's a chainsaw artist.
Look at that.
So this is an apple in progress. I don't know. Might be October. It could turn into a pumpkin. I don't know. But it's going to be like an eaten apple. So it's going to be like the apple core.
Yeah.
And this is a valley oak that came from an elementary school. So the way I fell in love with salvaging trees was making art, and doing these one-off cool chainsaw carvings. But then I started to realize, like, I am only salvaging 5 big pieces a year, and it has a cool impact on one person. But if we can make, guitars, I mean, that's like the dream, right? We turn this discarded material that's got amazing beauty in it, and we can actually stretch that and impact so many different people. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
But I still love doing chainsaw carving. So this is an otter. It's going for this is the school mascot where this tree grew.
Oh, cool.
John, that cracked out a lot. Oh, it sure did. Do you want to know why?
Why?
So this wood is white oak. So popular right now in the, Apple stores, and everyone's got white oak. White oak is also good for barrels, and it's waterproof. So if you imagine a tree is like a bunch of straws, a group of straws, there's this thing called tyloses, and that's when the straw wall pops and the water can't escape. Makes good for barrels because you have less of an angel's tax, right?
Yeah.
Your liquor doesn't come out. But because it's so dry here, the water can't escape, but it's trying to escape, and that's what causes it to crack, to come out. That's why we're not making white oak guitars from trees, even though California has the biggest white oak native to North America. There are some that just, this doesn't make sense for us to try to salvage as lumber. It's a stretch. I hate carving it, but because it came from the school, the value of the trees more, outweighs the issues. But I actually coated this whole thing in wax to try to slow it down from cracking. But yeah, that's the otter. So these are just like greening, right? We talked about that. Urban, we want to spread more green spaces, right? And they realize there's studies done for school kids, right? If you're learning around trees and wood products, right? If your desk's made out of wood, the retention is higher. So we're going around, and a lot of schools are taking out asphalt, planting trees, and doing these outdoor learning classrooms.
Great.
So these chunks are a little dusty right now, but these are big log classroom stuff.
What was the species of tree?
This is Eucalyptus globulus, aka you can't lift this.
It's beautiful.
Is that blue gum?
Yeah.
There's a lot of blue gum. If you're in Southern California, half the eucalyptus you see is blue gum.
And you know how many types of eucalyptus there are?
How many?
Gazillion?
827.
Wow.
All native to Australia except for 2. Hawaii, whoop, whoop, that's cool. And then this is the Deodar cedar. That's also beautiful. So this is a pre-drying shed. Everything in this shed was cut in 2024. That's where we're at now. So it's going to sit for another year or 2 years before it goes through the kiln.
I find a lot of people don't realize how dimensional lumber actually is when it's cut, and then it's like there's a formula to the shrinkage that you expect to get. And
check
so forth.
this out. Watch this over here. So when we put these units together, these were tight.
Yeah.
That's less than a year. It needs to dry for 2 years. It's still going to shrink more than that. But look how loose those straps are. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So this wood's going to sit in here for 2 years.
Yeah, that's right.
You're telling me.
That's right. Low and slow.
It smells pretty good.
It does. So you cut it into its initial dimension with an expectation of its final result.
Yes, absolutely. You always have to oversize it, allow it to shrink, And then in the quarter sawn variety, the material actually shrinks more than flat sawn. So you really have to go extra thick because you know it's going to shrink more in the thickness. So when we cut guitar billets, we'll end up wrapping them up like this, protecting them, making a little sauna around them, you know, so that no wind comes in and nothing, you know, so they don't dry out.
This one's rosewood?
Which one? Yeah.
That's sisu.
This is sisu, Dalbergia sisu.
So it's a real rosewood.
It's a real rosewood. This is grown in our urban forest, right? Illegal to import without permits, but it's just right here. How cool is that?
So there's two types of rosewood from India. There's Dalbergia latifolia, and that's what guitar makers use.
Right.
And there's Dalbergia sisu, which is really what the handicraft community in India uses. The tree grows further up north. I wish we had more latifolia in California, but there's a lot of Dalbergia sisu planted here.
So these trees, not only are they endangered, they're actually super invasive too. These are famous for going a mile to find water. And these were planted in the Phoenix area. It's like Jumanji. You hear the little dum 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 dum, and then the root comes out of the bathroom floor, boom, and jumps into your toilet. You know, it's like raising foundations. These trees are only, 20 years old, and they grow super squirrely, but they actually do dry beautifully. None of these pieces are good enough for guitars, right? Just the logs aren't big enough. They're not the right shape, but the wood is like it behaves and doesn't. For being a squirrely tree, you would expect the wood to dry that way. This stuff doesn't, which kind of makes sense to me why it's been used for such a long time, because it's easy to dry, and you are almost guaranteed a good product.
That's cool. So where does this typically go and get made into?
Oh man,
What do you want?
Yeah, the dresser at my house.
Yeah, a lot of furniture.
A couple years ago, cutting boards,
Yeah.
Charcuterie, left and right. Grazing trays, left and right. These things are now covered in jalapeno jelly and cheese, and it's amazing.
I'm getting hungry.
But yeah, so you're only limited by your creativity or your imagination.
That's awesome.
So IBE stands for iron bark eucalyptus.
Ooh, here we go.
So urban iron bark. So that's why it's all protected and wrapped up, because it's a really hard species, a little bit difficult to dry. So I'm not going to open it up for you, but because I care about my product that much.
Yesterday we saw some kind of figured iron bark.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So how often are you getting pieces like that? And it's just from special trees, or do you?
So
see it
it's hard to say. Like we get way more figured pieces that aren't good for guitar, because they're like too figured.
Yeah.
There's too much. There's like a mix of 19 different types of figure in there, and there's bark in it, and not usable, and not really, really hard to dry, not usable.
Yeah.
But I'd say maybe like 20% is figure, and some of the coolest looking figure from the urban forest is coming out of the iron bark. It looks like
You're a proud owner of a 50th anniversry iron
I
bark
don't
guitar.
think I told my wife that yet. But yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it is like, it looks like a, what's the James Webb Space Telescope?
Yeah.
It's like,
What was Andy calling it yesterday? Maybe the bees wings.
oh yeah, bees wings. We see
figuring,
bees wings more, But so like on the 50th anniversary, I don't know how much bees wings there was in there, but there was some other like galactic looking, I think they call it Palmel figure, right?
That was on the presentation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are awesome.
And that's mostly just genetic in the tree, right? That
Yeah, and the
causes
way it grows, some trees will grow right hand for a couple years and they'll spin this way. Then all of a sudden they'll switch. And then that end grain that you see, so that's why it looks like a checkerboard in the bees wings,
Right.
because the end, it's rotating back and forth, so you're seeing a little bit of end grain which appears darker. And then if you flip that piece, the dark and the light will change places, right? Which is like, that is so weird and so cool. And it's like chatoyance, magical. Yeah.
I love that shit.
Yeah, me too. If you go to Las Vegas, there's some axe holes out there called Axe Hole, and these are all their targets
Oh,
for
cool.
the axe holes on Fremont Street.
Yeah.
Do you just sell these for slab tables and all that?
Slab tables, headboards, flooring, cut the edges off, you got regular looking lumber.
Leave the live edge
why
on the
would-
side.
yeah, why would-
Oh yeah, people totally.
Yeah, that's I love that that's become a thing where it seems like more and more our culture is getting back to the natural state of wood.
Yeah.
And away from like trying to turn it into something it wasn't and appreciating its beauty.
What is this?
Any guesses?
I don't want to
Biggest
sound
tree in the
stupid.
world.
Biggest tree in the world?
It's a wide tree.
California state
Is
tree.
that a redwood?
Yeah, Sequoia sempervirens. Oh.
Wow.
And cool tree. I mean, really, one of the fun, interesting things. Why are we getting a lot of sequoia right now locally? Well, we mandated that like parks got switched to non-potable water. Sequoias are really sensitive to one of the salts that's common in that, and overnight wiped out all the redwoods in parks.
Oh my gosh.
But also, they need humidity in the air. Like if you go to Humboldt, right, there's that cheese called the Humboldt Fog. That's why it's so foggy there. They just drink up all the moisture. Not a lot of moisture in here, so they're not really going to live past 50 years. But almost every redwood that comes up in the urban forest is salvaged.
Yeah.
So none of it is entering the waste stream, and it's making a new life at someone's fence or dining table or Shaq's headboard or...
That's awesome.
It's my new band name.
Shaq's surfboard. That'd be a heavy.
Another thing, we used to cut our own sticks. So if you look, every piece of wood's got a stick in between it, and that allows the airflow to pass over it and remove the moisture. We used to cut our own sticks. Then when we started working with Taylor, we started using these cool little plastic sticks, and they allow for airflow underneath the wood. I was like, why would I buy a wood stick? I could cut 1,000 wood sticks, easy. Well, after being in the industry long enough, I can see the mistakes we made, and sometimes the sticks will leave a color stain on the wood, and you can't sand it out, you can't plane it out. So we invested a lot in those plastic sticks and in these sticks, which allow airflow underneath the wood.
Cool.
So here's some black walnut, which is another traditional tone wood. I don't know if this is heading for us, but could someday.
Absolutely. So we try to date everything, put an inventory code so that everything's available, and we can manage our inventory. So I have black walnut. Ooh. Not your East Coast black walnut. This is West Coast. Jugglin's Hinzii, a.k.a. Claro walnut. You know, marketing, Claro.
Need that Clara.
Yeah, right, Claro. This is a big sawmill here. It's called a Lucas mill, 68-inch wide max cut. So on some of these really big logs, we need to quarter saw them, and we got to split the log in the middle. So we'll use this, put the log, lay it down sideways here, fire it up. We'll split the log in half, then we'll split the log into quarters, and we'll take the quarters over to the next mill and slice them up. Let's go look. They've got a quarter sitting on the mill right now. I think we switched from a silver maple to a sycamore, but
It's all right.
that's okay. And sycamore's got these kind of medium-sized medullary rays.
Yeah.
You guys know about that?
Silking.
Right? And you see the silk on there. And when it's perfectly quarter sawn, you get more medullary rays, right? So when you get that top that glitters at you, you're like, oh my God, more medullary rays. Every tree has those, but they're not all visible. But sycamore is a medium-sized one, so when they start ripping this up, we'll get to see the like snake skin pattern. Awesome. Drive that.
Yeah,
You want to talk a little bit about quarter sawing for the audience?
As you see. So, we've already prepped. This is like movie magic, Martha Stewart. We're gonna have put it in the oven, and it's gonna come out done. But we've got the log cut up into quarters here. So this is the pith. This is the very first couple years of the tree, and wood grows inwards, right? The magic and the life of the tree is underneath the bark, called the cambium layer, and it just keeps on adding more wood. So the first years of life just get crushed, and that is the worst piece of lumber. So if you ever go to the regular lumber store and you look at the end of the 2x4 and it's got the very center of the tree in it, that is going to be a wonky piece of wood because it's got shrinking in all directions. This piece of wood is going to shrink like this, right? Not like this, but like an accordion. So the rings of the tree kind of going like this, and we'll cut it in a pattern that we get the rings of the tree going straight up and down, or a little bit to the left, and they call that rift. So he'll make a cut right here, a cut right here, a cut right here, a cut right here, cut right here, cut right here, a cut right here, and that will keep all the rings orientated in the right direction for guitars.
Awesome.
So, take it away, Eder. Is this yours, Joe? That's an edge here. So we're gonna brush it off now that we get a good view on it. And so you can see how much darker it was from the other side. Right. That's just because it's dried out. So right now it's full of water and we'll be able to see the water leave the surface, which is pretty crazy how fast it dries. Wow. Now we put a little water on there for a little water pop, you know? Yeah. See these sideways bands?
Yeah.
That's all the medullary rays. Do you have the little plastic? That's sycamore? This is sycamore. And you see how it's got this bug damage, these dots right here? And the coloration, right? Spalting, and this crazy spalting here too. And here we got a guitar template, right? Nice. So we'll lay this out here and see if we can get, hard to see, but if we can get a good one. This has bug holes. It's not going to make the cut for quality guitar. So this piece, maybe there's not that many, or maybe there's a piece over here we could probably get that's bug free, you know? Bam. And then the kiln drying process will also kill any bugs. But this sycamore is killed by a thing called shot hole borer. And that's why it looks like it was shot with a shotgun. Okay. Shot hole borer travels on a bug, and these bugs, the fungus is actually what kills the tree and stops it from passing water. But there's 3 different colors associated with the spalting on that bug. So if you see orange spalting, you'll know what bug brought that one. It's kind of, you know, if you're into that kind of thing.
And so that's always the danger to the tree when you have a bug. It's not in the heartwood of the tree, it's in the sapwood.
Typically,
and it's cutting everything off from nutrients. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's where, you know, it's called live edge.
Yeah.
Because that's where the life is.
Right.
And then you get the different color, right? And the sapwood versus the heartwood.
Right.
But eventually that sapwood will change to that color.
As it moves in.
Yeah. And these medullary rays are the living, and this is all dead cells next to it. So the dead cells are where they store like waste material. So it'll transport the waste material through the medullary ray and then deposit it in the dead cells. And that's why the heartwood is a different color, because it's holding all the waste material. So if you peel a log all the way around, or tree, you'll kill it.
Yeah, that's how they deal with some invasive species. I found out in San Antonio. They'll just cut a shallow ring around it, and then let it get to a point and then they'll fell it.
And that
Yeah.
stops the bugs from traveling through the roots, or the fungus from traveling through the roots and touching another root for another tree. Say like they don't have the budget to remove the tree right away. It's not a risk for falling over. They girdle it. That's what they call it, girdling.
Okay.
And they make a small cut. And we do it too. They used to do it like where it's easy to walk around the tree. But then that puts 2 cuts right in that guitar part. Oh, shoot, unintended consequence.
Yeah.
You're trying to stop the spread of pathogens, but you're also ruining the best part for a guitar or any other kind of lumber product.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to let them know, go as low to the ground as you can. It's a little bit more work, but you'll preserve more material.
Gotcha. Cool.
So then it'll go from this, it'll go into this machine, and we'll cut the edges off of it, make it 9 inches wide by 2 1/4 inch thick, and then that'll get ripped into 4 pieces and book matched as a guitar. But we only cut the billet. So we'll cut it 9 inches wide, 22 inches long, put it on sticks, wrap it up, say our prayers with feelings, and then deliver it to Taylor where we know it. And once it gets there, it's in the best hands, and it's going to be a success, which is
We got quite the education on drying wood from Bob Taylor yesterday. It was
awesome.
It was enlightening. Yeah.
fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Just the amount of steps it goes through in each different area. Seeing the water drip out of that was awesome.
Did you drink some?
No.
Oh, I was chugging.
Oh, yeah, you turned into a,
Yeah.
a black acacia tree. A blackwood
One
tree or
starts
an
to grow
ebony
in your
tree.
stomach, yeah.
Is that how you got so big?
That's it. That's it. Drinking kiln water. Killing me slowly.
First thing everyone wants to say all day. Love the beard.
Job requirement. Thank you very much.
So, can you talk a little bit about what got you into this?
So this is my family's tree trimming business. So ever since I was a little kid, I've been coming to our wood yards like this, where we make firewood and playing around. And then when I was 18, I started working here making firewood and seeing all these really cool pieces of wood, and then looking them up and saying, oh my gosh, this is like, super valuable.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
people import this wood all the time. And then I'd see it go into the firewood. We'd have a huge, we've seen our stacks of firewood. Every year I'd see these firewood stacks disappear. And then they come every year and then they disappear. And it's all going up in smoke.
Yeah.
Do I love a fire? Absolutely.
Sure.
I love playing guitar around a campfire. But there's, not every one of these trees
Should be
needed
destined for fire.
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
destined for that. So I fell in love with it, and I, was addicted to saving logs. And my first chainsaw carvings, they all got split up into firewood, and then they created a monster. And now we really, I see salvation in way more of this material,
Yeah.
but it takes such a long time and to really make it happen.
How'd you get connected with Taylor Guitars and the Urban Tonewoods?
So it actually started where I think PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, was removing a blackwood tree next to Andy's house. And he said, can I get that? Save you at the dump fee. And because that's not the status quo for the industry, right? It's like, no, I can't leave this. I have to take it. We're responsible. We have to take it. It's got to go in the chipper. And he's like, what the heck, right? And they started talking to Bob about it. And then they started talking with Scott about it and say, Scott, find out, who trims the trees? Who has the contract for around here? And, what's going on? How can we see this? And then Scott reached out to Mike Pallett, our regional manager in San Diego. And we were already doing it. We had an urban wood program that we had we'd had it for 20 years, but we never really took it seriously. We'd mill for a week, make a couple things, but we never really took it as serious as you got to take it.
Yeah.
So we had just restarted our urban wood program, and I think we just rebranded as Street Tree Revival.
That's
for sure. Yeah.
Little summary
And
of that pit
Scott
thing,
reached out
which
and
is
said, hey,
obviously not the PFAS
what do you guys do
thing
with
that-
these trees? I said, oh, actually, we have a program. So it's kind of we were doing it at the same time, separately, and then we came together, and they came out. It was one of my most fun days of work when Bob, Andy, and Scott came out, and we started looking around the stacks, and, finally people could see the passion and the potential that I saw in it, too.
Yeah.
Not just firewood or needs to turn into mulch, It's like, oh yeah, there is something here.
Yeah.
And I was like almost validating. And I was like, oh, it just added gasoline to the fire that we need to take it more serious. And we've made a lot of changes, and now we're starting to see all those changes come to fruition.
That's
pretty
cool.
So how long from that point in time when they first came out here did it take for the chamois ash to kind of be, this is the one we're going to pilot?
Yeah, so they knew, like, just there's certain things that you can see in the log that make it a good candidate for a log, right? Not a lot of spin or spiral. It gets a large diameter, so we can still get 2-piece backs out of it, so that's a win. So once they looked around, they saw what the volumes were and that it had the qualities, right? We first picked out about 6 or 7 species, and we milled them. We left them long, just quarter sawn, extra thick, and we gave it to Taylor to put into their proprietary drying process, you know, and into the dark covered wind chamber it went, you know, to disappear. And I was at home, you know, I know how long it takes wood to dry, you know, 2 years if you just dry it in the air, but you can speed it up with the right environment. So it took about a year, I think less time because we have vacuum kilns now that you can dry wood pretty fast in order to do some samples, you know, and then I think they made the samples and put them around the factory, right?
Yeah.
You know, use them and abuse them. See how they last in a harsh environment, you know, over the next 6 months. And once they had tested that one, it chamois ash stood out from the beginning as being, you know, having the right qualities, and it would be a success. So that was the first one that they went for after about a year of testing.
And that 324 Builders, it's like, it's one of the most popular guitars probably in the world right now. You know, like it's mind-blowing.
Certainly the most popular we sell, probably.
Yeah, and everybody gets surprised because they all think 300 series it's mahogany or something, and then they, you know, it sounds great, it looks really good, and that's the same thing with the Ironbark too. It looks good.
Yeah,
you know, it's interesting to look at. It sounds good. So,
well, you know, it's an interesting thing. I think in the guitar world, consumers put a premium on the idea of like an exotic tone wood, which makes me question what an exotic tone wood is. Is it exotic because it had to come from elsewhere? Is it exotic because of the species, which you've pointed out might be here, you know, surrounding us right now? And what are they really placing a premium on?
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, there's some like, you know, what was the best before, right? And that carries on, right? What was my dad's guitar made out of? That must have been the best, you know?
Well, that's interesting though, because if you think about it, like back in the day, Adirondack spruce was just what was around the factories building the guitars. And so urban tonewood is kind of a throwback to the beginning of a flat top acoustic guitar.
Which, how fun is it to realize it like that? You think that, was Stradivarius importing the most finest material? No, it was what was available in his backyard.
Yeah.
But now it's what's available in our front yards, you know, or the streets or the parks. So, yeah, like we have exotic species. You know, this is an exotic place. People are from all over the world, and we've brought the trees from all those countries. And, you know, it's kind of an old style of thinking. We have to rethink it, you know?
So you guys are piloting basically this logistic infrastructure with Taylor, and I have to imagine that there's some hope that what the future could hold is if it catches on with consumers, it could catch on with guitar companies like they've done with Ebony.
Right.
And maybe not just a Powers Electric with a urban tonewood body, which was awesome, by the way, because we're geeking out with Andy on one yesterday. But, you know, some special edition Les Paul or Fender that has wood that came from an urban source.
Yeah, that is the goal, you know, to spread it, because not only is it just the material that, you know, this is material that's available throughout the United States, right? Every city has trees that are going to waste, right? It's a regular thing. But if there's hopefully this spurs more people to take that more seriously and take that wood and care for it in the afterlife to make sure that it can be a great product.
Do y'all do retail sales of wood?
Yeah, we want to make the wood available to the communities too.
Do you ship to Texas?
Of course.
He does woodworking.
Yeah, my dad and I, and so he's always. I mean, there's cool spots around us, but nobody doing anything like this.
Yeah.
What other kind of local businesses and artisans, and I mean, who else do you work with?
Yeah, so we do a lot with just single DIY people that, you know, we definitely want to make the material available to onesie, twosie customers too. But we also work with medium-sized manufacturers, a group called Parkman Woodworks out of Los Angeles. We do with a Room and Board. We've got products with them, so nationwide. But also other ones like, I didn't make the project for her, but one of our customers made a piece that's at Alicia Keys' house, you know?
Wow.
So you don't know where the wood's going to end up, but more and more the wood is ending up in these really cool places, because we don't want to be the end manufacturer. We just want to be good stewards of this bioresource, take care of it, dry it to where there's the only difference in our wood and the other wood is the zip code that it was grown in, because we're taking really good care of it so that it's a really high-end product. Just was grown in 90210.
Yeah. Well, I love the name Street Tree Revival because it's getting a new life. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That's it. Yeah. Where's, we used to throw it away. Where is away? Welcome to away. This was away, and now it's going to live on in all these different products, and it's so cool.
That is very cool.
That's incredible.
Okay, welcome. This is the headquarters for West Coast Arborists. If you're doing an urban forest management plan, if you plant all the same trees that are all the same age, and there's one bug that comes and wipes it out, you're going to wipe out the whole tree.
Right.
So this is one of the wealthiest streets in the country. This is Beverly Hills. It's all lined with a beautiful shade-covering chamois that was all planted at the exact same time. When they go, they're all going to go together because they'll reach the age or infestation will come through, and they're going to have to cut down all of these trees within just a couple of years of each other. And now this gazillion-dollar street is not going to have any tree cover. And they would, as John was saying, they would never do that today. They would make sure that you have different species, different age class, so you can remove and add and maintain the canopy. Right now, this is like a plantation where every tree is the same age, the same size, and it's going to be a tough day when they have to take down all these trees on this street. So when I told you the story of Bob and Andy coming to the sort yard where we were, they found a bunch of trees that were interesting as guitar parts. The next day we came up, we cut samples and began the process, but then Andy would start talking to John and saying, well, how much chamois is there? I think I might kind of like this one. Is there, are you going to run out in a year? Like, what's the long-term future? And with this thing, John was able to say, there are 20,000 chamois trees in 8 counties, and give an estimate that we think for the next 10 years, it's, based on statistics, that this will be coming through the supply chain.
Yeah.
And it gave Taylor the confidence to say, okay, we're going to have a dedicated line. Because imagine if we introduced a dedicated line of ironbark or chamois, and then 3 years later, John's just like, there's no more of them.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough day for us.
Yeah.
So currently it's set up to see city by city, but with all the data, we just go ask IT to pull a query of the whole database, and we can see how many of these trees did we plant this year. Mm-hmm. So like every year we kind of run a report on our favorite trees just to see where we're at, and we can gauge how long we can make a run of that, like for ironbark eucalyptus, there's 25,000, 36,000 in inventory, and between 20, trees over 20 inches, we've removed 190 of those last year. And the previous year before that was like 150. So we kind of know, we can make some guesstimates, but with data behind it so that we can actually steer it a little bit.
And how long does, every species is going to be different, but looking at chamois, how long does it take for a typical tree to mature?
Those
Like 15 years?
Yeah,
20 years?
20 years you got a nice size chamois.
Yeah.
50 years you got too big of a chamois. Not a lot of people are planting them on streets because your tree wells are really small. So they're going to grow out of the side of the tree well. Mm-hmm. Across the street from my house, we can pull that up on the.
It's a great park
map.
tree. It's not a good sidewalk tree.
Yeah.
And they learned that the hard way, because when they first introduced them, they planted them a lot between the road and the sidewalk, and it's just too big of a tree. So
or they planted them before the sidewalks were there.
Yeah.
And then they.
Does Taylor then have like a number of, say, a fully matured chamois in good condition? How many guitars on average could come out of that one tree? Or does it just vary?
Urban trees, sometimes you don't know what's on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Maybe someone parked a bicycle there for 10 years.
You get a bike.
You got a bike on the
That could
inside
be
of the
interesting
tree.
coloration.
You know, we're gonna look at one later that's got something weird in it. you
That's
know?
cool.
So you can't really make those,
Yeah.
you know.
So that your best guesstimate is based upon trees that may fit potentially what you're looking for, but until you get into it, you don't know.
Yeah, I'd say of the chamois ash, because since we started doing this, there hasn't been a chamois ash that's gone to firewood, or all of it has come through for lumber, and so we sort through it and we mill it all, and then the best of the best goes to Taylor. I'd say we're probably at a 20% yield
Wow.
is guitar parts, but 80% of the tree we're still using for other parts, like the back of that is chamois ash too, where we sell the other pieces that aren't the guitar quality.
Yeah.
So I'd say chamois ash, because of this, it used to be 100% firewood. It splits really nice, it burns great, the firewood people like it. Now it's 100% going to lumber, with the cream of the crop going to Taylor.
Nice.
Oh, the distance in the back corner right there.
Look at that bad boy.
Oh, it's a monster.
So again, this is like after World War II. There's a huge home building boom in California. They want shade trees for areas that didn't have trees previously. They're putting new development track homes into areas where there weren't trees. And this guy, Archie Schammel, learned how to propagate this tree native to Mexico and was like, we can crank these things out in the nursery. And they got planted everywhere because they grew fast and they were a wonderful shade tree. Maybe too big of a shade tree, so if you put it near the sidewalk, it got too big. But turns out to be a property similar to mahogany.
So it also shows the value of the tree, because if someone gets in a car accident and kills the tree, the city's going to give them a bill. And that's what that tree is valued at, promoting $9,000 worth of cooling and shade and addition. So every tree has that value, and it's good information for the city to have. That's a dandy.
It's a black.
Yeah, that's a blackwood right there. And growing strong, looking healthy. Thumbs up. Well, that's what we want. I'm not trying to cut down trees,
Right.
We want more trees in the ground. Just don't want them to go to waste when they do come out. So right here. So there's 311 stumps. These are potential high risk for the city, Dead tree. 61 dead trees. Ooh, ginkgo biloba, carrot wood, Saratoga laurel. Don't rest on your laurels there. So these are all 0 to 6 inches. So like back when I was saying, the average lifespan of a tree in California, 8 years. There's that many that are dying young, but we're changing that. Last year we removed 2,000 of these trees. It was exported to Europe and called satin walnut. But it's American sweet gum. If anybody out there wants a home run for salvation from the urban forest, this is the one.
Why do you say that?
Because we're removing so many of them.
Oh.
There's a high volume.
It's not that you like the wood so much, it's just there's plenty of inventory.
It's just a huge resource that's currently coming down that many people aren't buying, or nobody really knows about it. Liquid amber styrokiflua. It's cool looking. So it's kind of a little bit into the software program.
It's impressive.
How many trees are in the inventory?
11 million.
11 million.
That's a good
You're
thing.
supposed to picture.
Oh yeah, 11 million leaves. Yeah, pretty incredible. So we have a big IT department and a big plant healthcare department, and there are people that have a GPS backpack. We used to have a long antenna. Now it's all with your phone, and they go around and they're an arborist, and they will identify the species and add it into the inventory. And
And do you cover the whole state, or?
so we're over half the cities in the state.
Okay.
So San Francisco.
So that's not even including, like, literally
That's
everything.
not including everything. That's
Yeah.
only city-owned trees or public agency-owned trees.
Yeah.
So that's like just a drop in the bucket of how many of trees there actually are. But those are all the ones from the public agency. And then with this, like now with AI learning and everything, this is really cool because tree ID photos, like, you know, have you ever used the app? You know, like the Plant It, they are okay, you know, they're not that good. But now we have actual GPS locations for all these different trees. You know, send a Google Maps down there, and with our data, so, you know, data's the new bacon, right?
Right.
More data, mo better.
The only so this is the database, is the backbone for everything that we do. But one story, John, I don't know if you're in the room or not. It was right after an Arbor Day meeting in Irvine, their annual meeting, and we invited this whole urban wood crowd down to Taylor Guitars. We gave them the tour, and the U.S. Forest Service stood up and started telling us about we talked earlier about their climate-ready trees. And they now have a list for every region of California, and these are the trees they would like you to plant, because these are the trees we think will do the best in the climate we're predicting in the future. And they were going over all the criteria besides, climate reasons, all the different criteria that made up this list. And Bob Taylor raises his hand and says, is one of the criteria end-of-life value? And it was like silence for a couple seconds. And then Miranda Hutton from the U.S. Forest Service goes, no, but it will be tomorrow. And at the very next day, who was it up at San Luis Obispo? Matt Ritter. Matt Ritter is the guy who creates the list. He's the guy who checks all the criteria and comes up with the list. These are the plants that should be, these are the trees that should be planted in this part of California, this part of California. And the very next day, he got a phone call that said, we want end-of-life value to be one of the considerations in what we plant. Because most of what gets planted, again, were the decisions that were made 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they were done for aesthetic reasons. They flowered pretty, or the developer thought they were good, but they might not have any value as a wood product. California is littered with trees that are nice-looking trees, but they have no end of, a woodworker couldn't do anything with them. But now it is an official, it's one of the criteria for what gets planted is end-of-life value, because Bob made that comment.
Mm.
The planting list? We should. And
list.
more and more cities are doing urban forest management plans. Like, depending on the city, you know, maybe the person that's in charge of the urban forest was in the sidewalks, you know, and they've been in concrete their whole life, and then they got a promotion and they don't know anything about trees, you know? So then they would lean on us more to do like an urban forest management plan, and we could say like, hey, 13 trees on your palette, that's not enough. You gotta go. No species should be more than 6% of your total population. So if you lose 6%, you're not gonna be,
Right.
you're not gonna be in a bad
Good way
position.
to look at it, yeah.
Right now is the best time for trees. There's never been a better time. I think for
city
tree
trees.
knowledge, city trees, people's appreciations of trees, people wanting to plant more trees. It's like the tree knowledge, it's like has been going like this for the last 50 years, and it's more professional than it's ever been. People take it more serious, and we're the leading on, you know, in the world, right? China's next with their urban forestry. I think I've seen in a presentation you made one time, but
Yeah, the U.S. Forest in like the mid 70s, I think 1975, the U.S. Forest Service put out the first urban tree report. And if you look at this literature survey, they have these slides from someone else's PowerPoint. For like 10 years, everything came out of the U.S. And then you start to see a little bit of academic literature in Europe or Australia or China or Brazil. And now most of the world is taking planting trees and greening their infrastructure really serious. It's a very similar curve with urban wood that really was only the U.S. that was doing analysis and reports and studies, and we've been doing it for like the last 10 years. But now the rest of the world is jumping on the bandwagon because, again, it's also it's an economic disposal issue. All these cities are planting more trees. There's more waste in the stream, and it's like, how can we find value from this product?
Right.
look at all the ebony available. And that wasn't on the list. Shame on me.
None of those.
Thank God you guys were here today.
You're welcome.
You're not making a fingerboard out of any of those days.
No. No, we're not. But kind of cool. So many different varieties, right?
Where's your guitar with the, we do that last. We should show you
Yeah.
around. I'm just worried about the time.
No, yeah, okay, so that's pretty much a little bit of our Arbor Access and Otis and a little bit of why we're a technology company that cares for trees.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're gonna go continue on the tour. You guys ready?
Data is power.
More redwood. There's a class going on right now. Take a peek. Ooh, that's all ironbark eucalyptus. Before we had the guitars. This is our, we call this Central Park.
Sounds like the best picnic table of any
You know,
player I've
redwood,
ever seen.
redwood, you know, it's not very heavy, right? You give her the old, it's actually quite heavy. The floor's made out of redwood, the walls. This is Torrey Pine, San Diego.
Nice.
Yeah. World famous Torrey.
Tory Pines.
If I only had a crane.
These are my enemies here.
Chipper. That's not celebration, that's now.
Yeah. They keep on making them bigger, but I come over here at night. About preventative maintenance. So after the lumber, you know, some Taylor stuff goes to them to dry, but we dry mostly everything else. And after it's kiln finished, we sort it into two qualities of wood: rustic and premium. And this is all kiln dried and ready to go. We sharpen our own blades in house. We're doing some blue ups right now. This is blue gum eucalyptus. It's got that fancy figure in there. This is our vacuum kiln right here. Normally, like I said, it takes an inch per year. We can dry wood in 2 weeks from fresh in there, but we can only dry a small amount. Pretty exciting. You suck the chamber pressure down and water boils at a lower temperature. Normally, we use little sticks to allow hot air to dry the wood. Inside here, it's got an aluminum plate in between each layer of wood, so there's no airflow, but the aluminum plate has hot water that heats it up, and you only have to heat the wood up to like 98 degrees, and the water inside the wood will boil and turn to steam, and it keeps the surface of the wood wet the entire time. And then we fill up little jugs and drink acacia water, and you're feeling good. So after everything's dry, right, we'll surface it. I put in, you know, so it's got a nice finish. It's not going to warp. It's already dry, and people can come in here and choose off the wall. You know, like I normally got a little squirt gun I'm going to get. So we'll put a little water on it to show you what it'll look like with the finish. So people come in the front door here, and then they just get to be around, you know, check it out, touch, feel, smell. English elm. Red gum eucalyptus, the wall.
Yeah.
This is hackberry. Super duper hard.
Yeah, I had one of those growing up in the yard.
Yeah?
Very hard.
Earlier we were looking at cork oak. This is cork oak.
There's your next table right there.
Japanese sawtooth zelkova. We were talking mesquite earlier. We got the mesquite right here. This is Chilean mesquite. My goodness.
I got a chunk half that size in my garage.
More elm. This one's black locust. It glows in black light.
Really?
Yes.
What
This-
causes it to glow in black light?
Some magical fluorescence in there that I need to look on Wikipedia.
Andy was telling us the other day what Port Orford cedar
Yeah.
pulls in platinum and has a luminescence because of it.
I mean, have you smelled the Port Orford cedar?
Yeah, we building some guitars with it.
Oh, he pulled a curl out of his pocket one time, gave it to me. Oh,
It's so floral.
intoxicating.
Yeah.
So, talking exotics earlier, right?
Yeah.
This is, according to Wikipedia, is the fourth wood sold as zebra wood.
Oh, yeah.
Chinese pistache, the cousin to the nut. Pisticea? No, I'm happy to see it. Pisticea chinensis. Elm. Carob. You ever heard of carob, like the chocolate alternative?
Yeah.
Ancient tree traded on the Silk Road for its fruit that kind of tastes like chocolate. So all these countries ended up having the carob, and then they realized that the seeds are all the same weight, and it became a measuring standard. How many carobs does your jewel weigh? And then that became the basis for the carrot.
Nice.
I made this for my wife, and for our wedding, we stuffed it full of flowers. It was cool.
That's very cool.
Now, we were talking about like bear paw earlier, and sometimes when you have like defects, or not defects, when you have characters in wood, right? Like this. These were all dormant buds, and then they trimmed it and it grew over. When you get elm like this, they call it Carpathia. I had to fly it in from the islands of Carpathia. Not really.
Wasn't the villain Ghostbusters 2 Carpathian? Vigo
That's-
the Carpathian.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
More elm, more
I
elm.
see
more
Vigo
elm.
right there.
Elm. This one, so this is English elm. This one's Chinese elm.
Look at that chatoyancy.
Woo! And then I got a new term I'm trying to coin. Anthrosology. So you look at this, right, and you can see what was going on, right? Like this straight line. You know what that straight line's from? That's a pruning wound where they cut that branch with a chainsaw. Now we can tell which way was up. This piece of wood is upside down because the branch would have been growing like that. And then fungus landed on that and started to decay and spalked it, but the tree grew over it before it got to decay anymore. Anthrosology.
Nice.
Blackwood. Woo! So all the pieces, that don't make guitar quality, we still save them. Like if we wouldn't have been able to get a guitar out of that. But oh my goodness.
Maybe an
gracious.
ukulele. That's pretty cool.
More acacia. Walnut. Put something, that little crotch figure there. Woo! The one we were looking at earlier, Deodar cedar, the national tree of Pakistan, right here. Give it a sniff. Anything?
Medicinal.
Ooh.
Medicinal? Yeah.
It's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Don't smell the alcohol, just the trees.
Yeah, it's just water.
Is it water?
Tequila. I wouldn't put water on the wood. No, yeah, it's just water. This is incense cedar. When I smell this one, I taste an eraser. That's what they make number 2 pencils out of.
Really? Yeah, that seems familiar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So each year, our program kind of started by making a cool Christmas gift out of the wood that we trim the trees for. So each year we give a gift made out of the wood back to the cities. Now, since we started doing the chamois ash, all the pieces that don't make the quality, so this is all made out of like the offcuts or the pieces that weren't guitar quality. So we got a chamois ash chair right there.
Any number 2? Where does it say Ticonderoga?
Yeah, I need to write that on. That is good. This is our scrap bin. Make all kinds of weird stuff. Everybody can go home with a California grown rosewood cookie.
Awesome.
Dalbergia sisu.
Oh, that's cool.
I can see it's shimmering. It's reflecting in your eyes right now.
That's a 1 in a million cut.
Yeah, I gotta get a photo of that.
Yeah. We sent because we just cut thick lumber. We didn't metal detect. We just
Right.
sent big quarter sawn lumber to Andy. And, right? The first cut, nailed it. Thank you. So cool. So cool. It only plays one type of music.
Heavy metal.
Heavy metal, yes.
The guitar's so metal.
Hey, you let me know when the reflection's right, so it's shining.
That's perfect.
That's so cool.
Yeah, my 424 doesn't have that.
I have that exact
You
guitar.
couldn't do that again if you tried.
I know, right? It's perfect.
So
That's
cool.
incredible.
I think it was like either a lost dog or lost cat, 1972, yard sale, something.
Wow.
Is that an ash top too, or is that something different?
It looks like spruce.
That does look like spruce.
I'm pretty sure it's spruce.
All I know, it's perfectly quarter sawn. You look at all those daggum medullary rays on that.
What's that label say?
What does it say in there?
That's some 314C.
There
That's
you go.
cool.
Spruce top, urban ash back inside.
That has to be a. I don't think that was a run, was it?
No.
We did the
No,
boat.
Andy made that special,
special?
when he cut through that and saw what it was.
He's like, I know where this is going.
He mentioned that it happened. He goes, "It's going to take me a while, but this one's going to WCA."
That's so
It really tells the story, you know.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's the only guitar I want to learn how to play backwards behind my head. You know?
Very cool.
Awesome.
This is Big Brutus. It's got a Monterey cypress on the back.
That's a big tree.
Monster, right? Any guesses on how old it is?
200 years old?
No.
Older?
Younger.
Younger.
120.
Younger.
80?
Younger. No, you can't count. You're missing all the rings in the middle. No, but it's about 100 years old. So the growth rings on it are over an inch, which is pretty fascinating. You know, a lot of people would look at this tree and assume 1,000 years old, but because it was on water and taken care of in Half Moon Bay, just south of San Francisco.
Is that yours? That totem? The tiki?
Yeah.
We need a photo of one of
You want to take it out?
and like take the chains off, you know, and post.
Yeah, I think you got room. You're in a big vehicle.
In San Antonio on the Riverwalk, we have some giant cypress trees
Yeah.
that have just been there forever along the river. They're huge. You remember how old some of those are? Because they're really old.
15, 16 years.
At least. You guys know Australian tea tree oil? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's Australian tea tree. Alamo. So you grab some branches off that, smack them around, throw them in your shower, run it all hot, like a spa day.
That's badass. That's your special, isn't it? The tiki tree?
Tikis, yeah. So down at the end of the street is our nursery and growing grounds. We recently just moved half the nursery to another location that's 18 acres. And this year, we're actually going to start collecting some of, we were talking about how we have these climate ready oaks. And we've been planting some of those for about, 5 years. But now we have all the locations for all of them. So when it's time for them to seed, we're going to be able to go collect the seeds from the urban forest and plant more.
John, what is that?
That is a blue gum uke.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And very unique.
Parking here. We get rough on parking.
Oh, yeah.
All chamelash. Hey, Skid. We're here with Alamo Music, showing off the workshop. Behind this door is a kiln. So we use that as a phytosanitation. So when we air dry all the material, we'll put it through there just to make sure all the bugs are dead. And we rotate that about twice a week.
That's awesome. Cool shop. Chris.
Alamo Music from Texas.
Yep.
So,
Skip, can we look at one of these psycho figured iron barks?
Yeah.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
This is the one he said was 2-figured.
I mean, I don't want to say I don't want to keep it. You know? Oh.
That's a pretty good one.
It's like that piece. Oh my gosh.
That's really good.
Oh.
It's
put a
great.
little Earl on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. This is allowed after COVID, but you weren't able to do this 3 years ago.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Woo! Oh my goodness gracious, that's wild looking.
Crazy.
Iron bark eucalyptus, my favorite. They said it couldn't be done.
So how many of these have you made so far? They look nice. I just saw one of the completed products over there in my wood shop. You can hold up to me, then they're quality tested.
Well, thank you, Skip. We're gonna go check out some. Oh, want to show us your black acacia tree?
Oh, come on up.
Your blackwood acacia?
The leaves come out of the leaves. So I guess these are juvenile leaves. The first ones that come out, and then it does that.
everywhere.
Isn't that cool? For
Wow.
location.
That's cool.
Yeah. Real cool.
Even the wood shop grows trees.
Yeah. There's no wood without trees. So.
That's how that works. Awesome.
And then you can take a peek inside. We create about 900 tons of green waste every day.
Wow.
That's logs, wood chips, everything included. So, and one of our big issues that we're trying to figure out is palm. So if anybody out there on the internet wanna be a hero and turn palm from trash to treasure, call me.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Hey.
Good.
What's your favorite tree?
That's it.
Oh, perfect. I think you got a liquid amber. Is that sycamore?
Okay.
It's almost like you know your trees.
Yeah. I think these are camphors too, actually. I think you got a little bit of something in there. Here, you can hold on to it.
Yeah.
A little bit of camphor in there.
You got a little camphor booger on your beard.
Yeah, you got some left.
Saving it for later. That's what
right.
the beard's for.
That's kind of a fun one. You guys recognize this leaf? It's an ancient tree.
Genus of one.
Genus of one.
Oh yeah?
There's only one in it, and they call it a living fossil because they have fossils of these leaves that are over 200 million years old. And I think you can buy supplements.
You've all heard of it.
You can buy supplements that's good for brain power.
It's called Rocky Balboa.
That's it. It's supposed to make your hair grow back. So far, it's just the chest and the back, nothing on top.
Yeah, it's supposed to help your memory. I always forget what it's called.
Yeah.
Ginkgo biloba.
Ginkgo biloba. You got it. Ginkgo biloba. Wow, isn't that fascinating? In the wind, this is like one of the prettiest trees. I think it just looks so beautiful dancing in the leaves.
That's awesome.
Ginkgo biloba.
No
Rocky
trees.
Balboa. That's so good.
It's a joke I always make when someone can't remember. You should take a supplement. It's called.
And I didn't take it, but I remembered.
So yeah, the other nursery's maybe 10 miles from here, and it's about twice the size. So we moved a lot of stuff over there, and that's where we're growing from seed now, and we're starting to plant out of that nursery too. So we're actually grew in our growing grounds, but we also grew in our parking. Yeah, so there's a lot more parking on
What's
this tour.
this? The fuzzy bird.
Ooh, you know that one.
This isn't, it's really hard to eat
So liquid amber has fuzzy balls, so does sycamore, so does London plane. And the way to tell the difference between a London plane and a sycamore is because one of them grows in groups of twos like this.
So
Or
you're telling me
threes.
it's either a London plane or a sycamore?
Yeah.
Depending on the space and the fuzzy balls?
Yeah, and because that's how you identify trees is by their leaves and fruit and their flowers, not necessarily their wood. So London plane and sycamore on the inside, they look very similar. So we lump them both together when we're selling it. But when these things go through the chipper, oh my gosh, you better hold your breath because some people are very allergic to it. Remember what we were talking about earlier on needles? These ones. Oh, we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
These ones are smooth, not ringed, so you
Oh,
can
yeah.
tell this is a pine tree.
Yeah, ring would be.
Ringed is a she oak, but it looks like a pine. Australian she oak. It's also called beefwood, and it's like, you know what the Jenga hardness test is?
Yeah.
Right, they take a 1-inch steel ball, how many pounds it takes to bury the ball halfway. Redwood's like 400 pounds. Blackwood acacia, I think it's like 1,300. Pecans like 1,700. Blue gum eucalyptus 2,100. The Albergia sisus 2,600. She oak 3,600. Ironbark eucalyptus like 3,100. They're
Dense
both
wood.
super dense. Palm trees, that's a bad name, right? Because they're really not trees. They're actually a grass.
Like bamboo.
That's right.
So how many species do you think you have in here right now? How many different kinds?
Probably around 50.
50 different species. And altogether, because you were talking about the 6% rule,
Yes.
you keep and recommend about how many different species.
Well, right now the list is 1,500.
Wow.
But only about 400 of those are commercially available at nurseries. So that's like the problem right now is a nursery is not going to grow something that they don't think they can sell.
Sure.
Right? So we are trying to convince cities to do like contract growing, where you say like, hey, I will buy this many trees in 5 years.
Right.
And now
Future planning.
get me those seeds, because they'll be happy to do that and get a permit or whatever, a research permit, and get seeds from Australia now that are, that are like ghost gum. That's a new one that people are, it's like really cold tolerant. And so I think they're planting those eucalyptus all the way up in Canada.
Wow. What are these, John?
Which ones? Let's look. I should have, I was afraid you were going to ask that. Where's the little tag? Over here. Oh, I'm so ashamed of mine.
These are please do not remove tags.
Okay, I know what it is. Shyness mole, aka pepper. You know the pink peppercorns in your 5 peppercorn medley?
Yeah.
Come from this.
Pink peppercorn.
People call it a California pepper, but really it's a Peruvian pepper. But if you look up Peruvian pepper, you get those little tiny special spicy ones.
Yeah. The leaves reminded me of mesquite. It's kind of reminiscent.
Oh, yeah.
Similar type of tree, I guess.
Every new tree needs 2 dead trees next to it standing to hold it up. Keep that off the thing, but it's true.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, one of these guys is.
Yeah, these are for staking trees because in an urban environment,
Yeah.
people don't care for young trees, so you have to stake them and protect them to make sure that they survive those.
Teenagers ruin everything.
Yeah, they kick a tree and I'm chasing them down the street. Right here, this is the original iron bark. When we milled it, these are all the pieces that we culled out that weren't the best for guitar quality, but still really good quality. I'd say Taylor only takes A+. I keep the A-, B+, maybe down to a D. So this is like my little pack of iron bark eucalyptus. One thing I like to do is you can see how much it shrunk, right? Oh, we did this earlier.
Yeah, with the straps. Yeah.
That's not too loose yet. Still needs another 6 months. Rest well, my pretties. And that's the nursery tour.
Awesome, man.
Any nursery questions?
You ever?
What are your favorite nursery rhymes?